The missing F-30, well, I guess it's not really missing now. They found it, didn't they? Or they supposedly found it. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions. Now, obviously, I'm not an F-35 pilot. Obviously, okay? I do have a general understanding, knowledge of aircraft and aviation. It's something I've been into for a very long time. Flight simulators, I took flying lessons. I'm colorblind, so of course I couldn't get my license. Pilot's not a thing you can do when you're colorblind, but it is something that, I love and I'm still very much into. That being said, there's a lot of things I don't know about the F-35, obviously. And a lot of it's probably classified anyway. But just by my knowledge and my years of studying and watching the production of the F-22 and the F-35, something I've been watching for a very long time, soaking up any information that I can get on them. I mean, you can actually see them flying now. I remember when these were prototypes, like when it was just concept. Like, that's how long I've been watching the production and the design of this aircraft. So, with all that in mind, what happened? Because we're getting conflicting reports and stuff that doesn't make any sense. For instance, the pilot ejected. We know that. Okay. Why? Forced to eject. That's what you usually say when the plane is unrecoverable, like forced to eject. That's the standard term that's used when a pilot is literally forced to eject because they have no other options. It's either eject or go down with the plane. So obviously that wasn't the case here, because the plane didn't immediately go down. In fact, we're supposed to believe that the plane traveled like 60 miles. So why would the pilot eject? What reasons could there be for a pilot to ditch a plane that's obviously still flying? I don't know. Okay, because that's not usually something that happens on purpose. Now, we were told, and this is true, this is the F-35 Bravo model, the U.S. Marine Corps version. It has VTOL capability, which it means the plane can hover, okay? It can kind of hover, it can take off and land on either vertically or very short runways, because it has an extra piece of equipment in the center of the plane. It's like a turbofan. It basically can provide lift to push the plane up into the air without the need for the flight, Bernoulli principle, whatever. With that system comes usually an auto eject system, because with these types of aircraft, like the VTOL type of aircraft, when you're doing hovering maneuver, you are so close to the ground and the margin of error is so small, the accident may be occurring before you really realize it, and then you've still got to eject, physically pull handles to eject. The humans can't react fast enough, is what they've learned. So I guess it has some kind of sensor or some kind of system that tells it that the plane is unrecoverable. It's about to go into the ground. You are so close to the ground, you don't have time to pull the ejection handle. So the computer, once all these criteria are met for unstable hovering, whatever it's called, it will automatically eject the pilot. Now, I can't imagine that in regular flight mode that auto eject would still be activated, because that's supposed to be for VTOL only. Okay, the news articles have said that the pilot was hovering in hover mode, VTOL, whatever. Okay, well, in that case, it's possible that the plane could have ejected the pilot. In regular flight mode, you can't have an active auto eject system, because in regular flight mode, you're going to be doing things with that airplane, especially in combat, that might make the plane think, it needs to auto eject you. Like, you're going to be pulling some heavy G's. This is a fighter aircraft. I don't really see a way to make that even feasible. And as a pilot, or somebody that, wishes they were a pilot, I wouldn't want to be riding on the end of that loaded weapon. You'd be constantly worried that the jet would be thinking that, you hit the wrong series of G-forces combined with speed, combined with airflow, however it measures whatever instability is. You hit those for a split second and the plane auto ejects you. It has to be VTOL only, which brings us to the next question. If it were in VTOL mode, hover mode, maybe the ejection fixed whatever instability there was in the airflow around the plane. Okay, possible. Here's another problem. How does that plane travel 60 miles, which is it's a clip, okay? It's a good good little distance. I mean, for regular flight in a fighter aircraft, 5 minutes maybe. But let's keep in mind that in VTOL mode, this is not regular flight mode. Okay, VTOL mode is much, much slower. So if the pilot had already been hovering and the plane auto ejects him, the plane rights itself, keeps hovering for 60 miles. Here's the problem with that. With these turbofans, they overheat quickly. You only are going to get, I think at maximum, maybe 14, 15 minutes of hover time before the turbofan begins to melt. This turbofan is having to spin so quickly, so fast, holding up a jet fighter. Not to mention the weapons the jet fighter has on it, the fuel, right? The pilot, all the equipment inside. Jet fighters aren't light. Hence, 12, 14, 15 minutes before the turbofan overheats and starts to basically annihilate itself. How does that travel 60 miles? Not in hover means no auto eject. Not in hover means it could definitely cover 60 miles. But then that brings us to the question of, why did the pilot eject? Ejection is last ditch. Like, it's going down with or without you, preferably without you. Okay, I did look. I couldn't find max speed in VTOL mode, but it ain't going to be fast. Okay, because stability of the jet is paramount when in this mode. It's not something it wants to do. Okay, you're basically forcing this heavy object to stay in the air, kind of like a helicopter, except you don't have the benefit of those massive rotor blades turning. So you've got a fan. Lateral speed is not going to be something you can really do a whole lot of. Probably measured in double-digit knots, okay? That's not going to take you 60 miles before that fan overheats. It's just not. And now there's this report today. Apparently these people saw the F-35 near where the crash site, right, was found. The lady that's telling the story to the news reporter, journalism or whatever, oh my gosh, it's so low, she said, and it was kind of probably 100 feet above the treetops and almost going inverted. In hover mode, just not going inverted. Okay, so it sounds to me like it was in flight mode. So not in autopilot, or was it? And how does autopilot stay active after an ejection? Because as far as I understand it, most of the systems in the jet are going to shut down after ejection. It's just kind of a byproduct of ejection. It's just what happens. Even some jets are even designed to have everything shut down, including the engines. At the time of ejection, fuel is cut, electrical systems are cut, and that is to give the pilot a better chance of separation, clean separation from the aircraft, instead of having two powerful jet engines behind you still pushing forward while you're pushing out of the cockpit. As you can imagine, the wind shear is going to be pretty intense anyway, but if the jet is providing thrust, that's going to suck a lot more and could be fatal. In some cases it has been. So how is the jet going to retain all of its systems, including I would argue, one of the least necessary systems, the autopilot, after a catastrophic ejection? So why are we being told all of this? That's the question. And that's my problem here. What we're being told, or what we're hearing at least, doesn't make any sense, because everything is contradictory to what I know as someone who's interested in aviation, as someone who's followed this program since its inception. None of this makes any sense. They showed the pictures of the crash site. They said that the plane was incinerated. There are parts of this plane that will be left. It doesn't matter how hot the fire got at the time of crash. Something's going to be left. Something big enough. Pieces of the airframe, pieces of the engine. Those engines are very tight, condensed, strong pieces of machinery. They have to be. They fit a lot of heavy machinery into very small spaces. A lot of it is going to hold together, and it's not really going to be susceptible to disintegration from a fuel fire. Do Bravo fires get hot? Yes. Do they get hot, relatively speaking? No. Not compared to like Delta class. The rocket motors in the missiles that this thing carries, much hotter. But there's not enough there to burn an entire aircraft? What would cause the aircraft to just totally disintegrate like that? Well, if you were traveling 400, 500 knots and you slammed into the ground, yeah, there's really not going to be much left. Okay, that kind of kinetic force is going to pulverize most of the components. But even then, I would argue you could still find some stuff that's recognizable. So what were we looking at when we looked at the debris field? Why are they telling us these things that don't add up, that contradict itself, that doesn't make sense? And we're getting nothing from the military. This is our jet. We paid for it. We just lost $80 million in equipment, and we're not allowed to know why. What are you hiding? It's not even about the wreck anymore. Like, you could have told us that the pilot just lost their nerve, okay? As bad as that may sound, that's a reason. Like, at least I can connect the dots on that. The pilot got scared, right? Not really meant to be a fighter pilot. I'm not saying that any of this is what happened. I'm saying that this is what they could have told us, and it wouldn't be as bad as not telling us anything or giving us a bunch of BS that contradicts itself constantly. I immediately go to, what are you hiding? Okay, I don't even go to conspiracy theories. Not really, not yet, not until there's evidence, and we all know how those usually have a chance of turning out now. 50% of the time, it seems like, if not more, they're usually true. At this point, you do have to tell us what happened, because you owe that to the American people. Literally owe it to us, because we paid for this plane that you lost, that somebody crashed, whether it's not their fault, whether it is their fault. So what happened? We have the right to ask, and you don't have the right to not tell us. What are they trying to hide? Something tells me it goes a lot deeper than losing an $80 million jet. I will make that prediction right now.